The Vice Chancellor, Professor Samuel Gudu, members of the University Council present here today, the deans of faculties, esteemed scholars, distinguished delegates, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure to be with you here this morning for this very important platform that will facilitate an environment for deliberations in research. I'm honored to join you today during this important gathering of scholars, researchers, educators, and students. Conferences like this one remind us of the great power that knowledge holds and how vital it is to share it across borders, disciplines, and generations. I extend my sincere gratitude to the university leadership for the invitation and commend your unwavering commitment to academic excellence, research, and national progress. As Professor mentioned earlier, it's not my first time here. I think I've been here 2-3 times in the past, and on one of those occasions, we did commission an ICT hub here, which is very much in tandem with the theme of your conference. We live in a time of rapid and constant change. Our economies, our societies, and even the way we live our daily lives are being reshaped by digital technologies, especially artificial intelligence, commonly known as AI. The theme of this conference, harnessing artificial intelligence and innovation for a sustainable future and advancing global resilience, could not be more timely. I'm aware that we have been grappling with whether or not we need to regulate emerging technologies. AI is just one of them. We have Internet of Things, we have big data, we have machine learning. And the question that comes to mind more often than not is, do we really need to regulate these emerging technologies, AI inclusive, or we let the emerging technologies regulate themselves? And if we are to regulate them, to what extent can we successfully regulate them? Against the background of the fact that you have got an emerging technology today, you try to catch up with it. Tomorrow, it's even getting obsolete, and another emerging technology crops up. So the greatest question of the day is, how do we keep abreast with emerging technologies? And the implication of this, good people, is that we have to undertake constant research so that we are in a position to anticipate what technologies are going to emerge tomorrow, so that we can be ahead of the envisaged change. If technology advances at a level higher than the level at which we are embracing the technology, then we run the risk of becoming irrelevant. That is the challenge that we face. We must keep pace with the technology. If not, we must be ahead of emerging technology. And this can only take place if we continuously undertake research. Artificial intelligence is no longer a futuristic concept. It is reshaping every sector of our society in real time. In agriculture, for example, AI is advancing precision farming and strengthening food security. In healthcare, it enables early diagnosis, personalized treatment, and remote care. In education, it expands access, enhances adaptive learning, and empowers learners. In disaster management, it enhances preparedness in a participatory manner, risk mapping, if not risk mitigation, and early warning systems. In finance, it accelerates financial inclusion and broadens access to services. What this implies is that we have to embrace technology in almost everything that we are doing today, to re-engineer the processes. In education, for example, if you look back in nostalgia and think of the Corona era, who would have imagined that a university like Rongo would facilitate academic programs without physical classes? And yet we did it successfully. during the Corona era. In fact, if you ask me, Corona was a godsend because it enables us to do away with resistance to resistance to change. Yeah, that is deeply embedded within the Kenyan populace. Because we had no choice, we had to work remotely. Assuming all factors were held constant. And then you told people that, we have to undertake all our business processes technologically or virtually. Quite a substantial proportion of the population would resist that change initiative. Yeah? So the lessons that we learned from Corona and which we have carried to date and we want to carry into the future is that the future of everything, the future is digital. In everything that we are doing, we have to embrace digital technologies. The opportunities emanating from these good people are immense. Yet even as we embrace the possibilities, we must remain alive to the profound challenges that accompany them. Ethical dilemmas arising from algorithmic bias, threats to data privacy and cybersecurity, and the risk of widening social and economic inequalities. As we embrace digital transformation, we need to deal with the issue of equity and inclusivity. If, for example, we only have digital platforms in the urban centers but not in the rural areas, that will create a digital divide that will not make digital transformation all-inclusive and sustainable. You are aware that the government today is ensuring that almost all services are being offered electronically or virtually. In fact, in the not too distant future, you will not have to physically visit a government office to consume any government service. You will be able to consume government services from the comfort of wherever you are. When the fifth administration came into government, we only had a meager 350 services available online. Today, we are talking of over 22,000 government services which are now available online, to the extent that you can consume virtually all the government services from wherever you are, the comfort of wherever you are. But the challenge that we have to deal with is ensuring universal access to digital infrastructure. We must ensure that we have digital infrastructure all over the country. And that is why proactively, again, we have embarked on the process of facilitating digital skilling for the Kenyan population, starting with the youth. That's why we have set up a digital hub here in Rongo and other TVET institutions. We have now done about 180 of them. Through that program, we are facilitating digital skilling. We have now undertaken digital skilling for over 600 youth, and in equal measure, we have created digital jobs for 182,000 youth. And we have got youth working right from here in the villages for companies based in America, Belgium, UK, India, yeah, Singapore. Not long ago, I mean, that would not be possible. And these youth are being paid in foreign currencies, yeah? So that is really the direction we are going, yeah? We are going to have a major transformation. And you are aware that we no longer have the white-collar jobs. The only way to stem the rural-urban migration in search of non-existent jobs in the urban centers is to embrace digital transformation. That's why we are going big on digital skilling on one hand and digital jobs on the other for our youth, so that we can create the jobs for the youth right here in the villages, and the youth can work from wherever they are. The other challenge is, if we are going the route of digital transformation, digitizing records and also digitalizing services, we get into possession of a lot of data. That's something you need to think about. A lot of data which belongs to the Kenyan public comes into the hands of government at line ministry level and even state agency level. How do we ensure the security of that data? That's something we must deal with. Yeah? The privacy and security of the data. We have got the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act, but we also have the Data Protection Act that governs that digital space. But on a continuous basis, as you undertake research, we want to see research that leads to other emerging propositions that will also help us strengthen the policy, legal, and regulatory framework of the digital space, so that any data that comes into our possession remains not just private, but it also remains secure in the interest of the Kenyan public. This conference, therefore, offers a vital platform where academia, policymakers, innovators, and community leaders can converge to interrogate how we can harness artificial intelligence and innovation responsibly. And mark that word, responsibly. And also inclusively. But most importantly, also in a sustainable manner. That is imperative. Kenya, as you are aware, has long been celebrated as Africa's Silicon Savannah, a nation that embraces innovation, entrepreneurship, and digital solutions. Within this, artificial intelligence, data science, and emerging technologies are now central to realizing our broader national aspirations, realizing the Kenya Vision 2030, advancing the fifth administration's bottom-up economic transformation agenda, commonly referred to as BETTER, and even aligning most effectively to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals on one hand, and even the Africa Union's Agenda 2063 on the other, and even closer home to the East Africa Community Vision 2050. Government initiatives such as the Kenya National Digital Master Plan 2022-2023, which is the critical foundation of all our digital interventions, and the ongoing development of a national AI strategy and investments in digital innovations hubs are laying a strong foundation for a digitally empowered nation. As we digitally empower the nation, we are not leaving behind those who are operating at the bottom of the economic pyramid. That is why we are also facilitating the establishment of Wi-Fi hotspots all over the country. Our target is to ensure that we have a total of 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots. And we are beginning from those locations where the vulnerable segments of the society, Kenyan society, are domiciled. We are doing Wi-Fis in markets for our mothers and sisters involved in itinerary trade. We are also doing Wi-Fi hotspots at bus termini, where we have got our able but idle youth domiciled so that they can leverage on digital technology for purposes of gainful economic activity. From my vantage point within the Executive Office of the President, I can affirm that the coordination of these efforts, ensuring effective alignment, performance, service delivery, and impact across ministries and sectors remains a high national priority. Our collective ambition is clear, not merely to adapt technology, but to shape it, govern it responsibly, and ensure that it uplifts the standards of living of all Kenyans for purposes of both economic growth and economic development. Universities are at the heart of this transformation, and I therefore urge institutions such as Rongo University to effectively integrate AI and other emerging technologies and digital literacy across all fields of study, from science and engineering to agriculture, health, and even humanities. I encourage you to promote interdisciplinary research that addresses real-world challenges, especially those affecting our rural communities. I call upon you, therefore, to uphold ethical standards, ensure fairness, impartiality, transparency, and accountability in technological innovation. I also, in equal measure, invite you to foster innovation ecosystems that nurture startups, entrepreneurial thinking, and community-driven solutions. And I challenge you to strengthen partnerships with the government, industry, and civil society to accelerate the translation of research into tangible, positive impact. Research must be effectively linked to practical situations in the market. If harnessed wisely, AI offers enormous opportunities to revolutionize education, expand healthcare access, enhance climate resilience, power new waves of entrepreneurship, and reform public service delivery. On almost all aspects of service delivery within the government, we are leveraging on technology to re-engineer the services offered by the government, to facilitate efficiency and effectiveness in service delivery. That is why we have made it mandatory that all government processes must be technologically driven. Let me just give you an example about the benefits of technology. When we came into government, we used to collect, on average, 60 million shillings per day. Total revenue collection. Today, on a good day, we are capable of collecting up to 1 billion shillings per day. The sources of revenue remain the same. The people in government remain the same. But we have just leveraged on technology to seal the revenue leakages by ensuring that those avenues that people are using to siphon out resources are sealed. And if we go that route, we should be able to enhance our revenue collection to a level where we will no longer need to rely on external debt. We should be able to domestically, from the domestic market, collect adequate revenue to finance both our domestic development and recurrent expenditure. Through technology, we are bringing in more people into the income bracket. Look at the Hustler Fund, for example. Disbursing resources to those domiciled at the bottom of the economic pyramid electronically, technologically. You do not need a committee to approve the loan. Yeah? You do not need to talk to anybody to get the loan, the Hustler Fund. It is between you, your phone, and the government. You do not need collateral to access the loan. You don't need a title deed. You don't need a logbook. Your security is your credit rating. The more you borrow and the more you pay, your credit rating levels goes up, and you'll be able to borrow more and more. And that is the direction that we are going. You know, I was here in Awendo about 1 year ago and did give some seed capital to a women group, 1 million shillings. Do you believe that today that money has multiplied to up to 17 million shillings? And they keep borrowing amongst themselves. Yeah? And their leadership tells me that some of the challenges that they were facing before, like school fees, like food, is now a thing of the past. Yeah? So we need to leverage on technology. And I want to encourage you people to encourage as many people as possible who cannot get access to bank loans to pursue that Hustler Fund. It is a game changer. Yeah? It is a game changer. And also encourage the women. You know, my experience, I've been around for a while. When you give money to a women group, you go back and you realize it has multiplied. When you give money to a men group, you go back and realize that the net effect is polygamy. So if we harness artificial intelligence effectively, the opportunities will be enormous. But we must remain vigilant to ensure that AI bridges rather than widens social divides. Data privacy, cybersecurity, and national sovereignty must be rigorously protected. So let's try and carry everybody along. All our youth today, please, by the time they complete Form 4, everybody should be digitally enabled. They should be able to utilize basic digital technologies. And citizens must be empowered not just as users of technology, but as informed participants and decision makers in how AI shapes our lives. Our approach as a country must always prioritize a human-centric, rights-based, and ethically anchored technological future. The future is not something we passively await, but we must actively build it. Choice by choice, action by action. We must determine the future that we want. I therefore call upon all of you, as researchers, educators, innovators, policymakers, and students, to develop African-led AI solutions rooted in our realities and aspirations, to embed ethics, sustainability, and inclusion at the heart of every innovation, and to empower our young people to be creators, owners, and leaders of technological progress. Yes, granted the world is changing, and so must higher education. You cannot continue facilitating higher education today the way you are doing it 10 years ago. You run the risk of becoming irrelevant. We must ask ourselves, are we preparing students just for exams, or are we preparing them for industry? And how do we prepare students for industry based on recent technological innovations? Are we teaching them to follow instructions, or are we teaching them to solve problems? Yeah? And we build institutions, are we building the institutions for today, or are we building the institutions for the future? If we are building the institutions for the future, we must, in equal measure, good people, undertake continuous research so that we are able to foresee in a proactive manner what the future looks like, and position effectively in that operational environment, align effectively to the changes taking place in that operational environment so that our institutions remain relevant. As I conclude, I want to wish that Rongo University continues to stand tall as a beacon of excellence, preparing leaders not just for Kenya, but for the world. Together, it's my verily belief that we can harness artificial intelligence and innovation to drive a future that is sustainable, resilient, and inclusive for all Kenyans and the world at large. With these many remarks, it is now my distinguished honor and privilege to officially declare this conference open. Thank you very much.